Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order this afternoon and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Brent McIntyre, and I'll be chairing the hearing today. To my right is Gisela Rempel, and zooming in is Cynthia Stevens. Our assessor today is Jeremy Pohl, and our hearing secretary is Stephen Lund. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board and Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket today. Mr. Lund, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony. And I understand the first applicant is Ryan, and who is representing Ryan?
I'll affirm it's Justin Johnson, and I'll affirm them. But Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jeremy Ryan.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Justin Sidney Johnston.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do so affirm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first property on the docket today is 555 Empress Street. And are there any preliminary issues on this file? Either party can.
No.
Jeremy, nothing?
No.
And John, Justin, nothing?
I actually do have something really quickly that actually might speed this entire process up. The individual who created the brief and signed the brief, the evidence brief, is no longer with Ryan. So I'm just here to represent my client, which is the Capital Automotive Group, just in a sense of being at this hearing. And I actually cannot speak directly to the report that was generated by Mr. Nishi Beckingham. So this all happened within the last 2 days. So we're willing to just put forward what's on paper as evidence, and there be no verbal testimony being provided here today.
And we can't question on that evidence because you didn't produce the document.
Exactly, and that's the unfortunate part. I don't know if there's even an easier way to do it. I think maybe possibly with the permission of the assessor and this board is maybe withdraw the appeal.
It's always an option for you to withdraw. Honestly, I was just going to go through the brief quickly since what you just stated, just to put what's on record, and then the board can make its decision based on my evidence alone, or they can consider anything that you put forth if you put anything forth. But if you're going to withdraw it, then that saves everyone an appeal.
I think that might be the easiest way to do it because I don't want to put my client in a position where, I can't speak to the evidence because I didn't create the report, right? So,
The onus is upon us, is what I'm saying.
yeah.
So you essentially can remain silent and let the panel make a ruling on my information alone. But it's up to you if you want to continue forth with the appeal. I'm sure you've read our brief, so.
Yeah, I've read your briefs, and yeah, I'm okay if, from the position of my client just withdrawing the appeal.
Okay. No objections.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Are we going in camera?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll reconvene the hearing. The next property on the docket is 680 Pembina Highway. Any preliminary issues with this one, gentlemen? And to cover all the rest of them, since it's the same agent and assessor, is there any preliminary issues on any of these?
Not for my behalf.
No. Okay, then I don't have to ask that question again.
And I think the argument is pretty uniform, where we can just make the one argument for this property and just have it carry forward. We're all doing with this, like we'll touch on each property, but the main argument I think we can do once over. Would that be any objection to that?
No, that's fine. I think, any objections, Marcelo? Nope. It certainly will make the process go quicker.
And again, if I have to take a minute just to reconnect, I apologize in advance because I know it's going to happen.
No, that's fine.
And I'll just do from the action.
Yes, please.
Mr. Rivera, when you have a moment, we'll from you. Okay, please stand. And please state your full name.
Marcel Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. So the property is 680 Pembina Highway, and Jeremy, you can proceed with your presentation.
Okay. Roll number is 120976500000 680 Pembina Highway. The 2023 assessment is $5,292,000. It is a car dealership. If we go to my page 7, is the photograph of the property, the aerial photo, and a elevation view from the street. It's Fort Rouge. It's a used car dealership, as we can see. If we go, 1 second here. If we go to the last 3 pages, we see on page starting on 54 that the COVID the COVID questionnaire was sent in and it was returned. It was a minor impact. And then we see on page 56 that it is owner occupied and it is Fort Rouge Auto Center. So it is owner occupied. There is no rents in place. From that, I believe we have an educated panel here today as far as the argument I'm about to present, but I'll do it as quickly but as fulsome as I can, so we can go through the rest of the appeal. So, if we look starting on my page 2, or I should say on page 1, I should say, it is an older dealership that had an addition put onto it. It is approximately 27,541 square feet. The rent that we have put onto it is on page 3. It's a singular workup. We have the rents in place as we see. Our potential rent is $393,185, applied to 27,541 square feet. Our standard vacancy, or standard parameters with a vacancy of 2%, gives us a gross income of $385,321. Expenses at non-recoverable expenses at 3%, shortfall at $6, gives us a net operating income of $370,456, and we cap that at 7%, which gives us our $5,292,000. If we go down, starting on page 7, like I said, is a photo of the property. On page 8 is the argument. As we all are aware, car dealerships, there are no renting car dealerships, true arm's length tenants within the city. This has been discussed multiple times throughout the cycles. There just isn't any. So what we do is we go out into the marketplace and we look for a similar type building, and we apply that income stream, that those parameters, income expense parameters, to this subject property. So what this is retail big box stores, buildings that are similar size, similar age, in retail locations that have enough parking area on them to accommodate retail vehicle traffic. And of course, that would translate into, if you're going to occupy this property to sell cars, you would have enough parking on site for that. So as we look into the marketplace, what we're trying to do is find a location that, if these property owners who are owner occupied are selling product on site, large area, parking their vehicles on it, servicing the vehicles on it, have a showroom up front and a storage to work area for the shop area, out back to work and service the vehicles. If they were going to not rent and they were going to go out into the marketplace and find a similar location for retail selling purposes, the similar steel shell building, footprint about the same, build up would be a little bit greater in the car dealerships versus a big box store. But if we're going to be going out into the marketplace to look for a property to rent, what would they need to pay? What would be their entry into the marketplace? And as you can see on page 8, this would be their entry into the marketplace. So we have 20 comparables. We have all from 2000, roughly 2000 onward, for effective ages, similar sizes, similar locations, and we have 531,000 square feet approximately. And the average rental rate is about $18.80. The weighted average is $18.01, and the median is $18.27. So this is a good analysis as far as if you're going to go into the marketplace and occupy a steel frame building, slab on grade construction, showroom up front, that kind of thing. What is the rent that you would be entering into the marketplace that an owner would effectively get from you? And this is what we see on page 8. So when we see rents rate that are put in $16, $15, and of course the storage area at $7, I think that's pretty indicative of what the marketplace would be if they were going out to actually look for it. Moving on from that, we have our overall package. There's some sales here that we've looked at. There's also more sales in the marketplace, but we're slowly going through them for municipal board purposes to verify that they're land transfers only, that there's no information or is no goodwill, no on-site building business component that goes along with the sales. These are ones that have been confirmed, and you can see the sale prices that are cheap in them. So below that is just the nature of the properties, the label for you to see. If we look under that, starting on page 17 is a dealership that was renting. There was also dealership on Pembina as well. I confirm that these were arm's length tenants. These were the last arm's length tenants that we found within the marketplace. It was the Patterson Auto Group. They were the dealership that rented from a building owner. What they did was enter into a purchase agreement, which is the option of the franchise, the Jim Patterson Group, to buy it at the end if they so choose, and if not, they could walk away from it. The owner did not have the option to walk away. It was based on an appraisal that was done prior to occupying the property, and it was a bit of an elevated market rent, which we did confirm. So again, that's the best market indicator that we have, but it was also with intent to purchase the property. Essentially, they were test driving the site to see if it was a good site. And clearly it was, because at the end of the first auction, they purchased the site. So, and again, so the next bit of information we have are 2 properties that were leasing and for sale in the marketplace. On page 18, this used to be Hyundai Focus on Regent. We can see that it is listed for sale, but then listed for sale for $3.5 million approximately, but also listed for rent at $16.50. So there's another good indicator that a full service dealership or dealership of this kind would indicate that we get about $16.50 on Regent. So again, that's just asking rent. On page 22 is another dealership on Regent, just a couple blocks down. As we can see, it's listed again on page 24. Same idea, listed for 4.3 million, a net annual lease of 250,000, and that translates to $16. That one there is a bit older. There's some additions onto it, so it's a bit older stock, but there's a showroom up front that was, the rest of it was quite a bit dated. So when we move along from there, we can get into the order at 26, page 26, which is unit 3965 Portage Avenue, but I don't think we really need to. I think everyone's well aware of it, so I'll just kind of skip over it. Just indicates that for one of the condominium dealerships, the last one that it's quite a bit dated older, but this was the last order that actually went to finance. Below that is some more research that I've done while reviewing everything. We have a lot of appeals at the municipal board. We have over 200 appeals at the municipal board, so we're looking into a test case scenario to go through these. So part of this is my due diligence for prepare for that test case. I'll share it obviously here at the board revision level as well. So starting on page 35, we have an order with 4 appeals, which were municipal borders, which are predating the Unit 90 appeal. If we go down to page 41, highlighted in yellow for your ease of reading, just indicates that this big box store retail argument isn't new. In fact, it was presented prior at the municipal board and adopted by the municipal board. So as we go through here, we'll scroll along. If we get down to page 45, and I highlighted it in red, the board's finding, the board is satisfied that the appropriate method to buy the subject property of the auto dealership is income approach. I've been exploring the cost approach. It is a specific utility that it provides to car dealerships or for full service dealerships, but it doesn't meet quite the full test because after the older dealerships have been sold off and bigger has been built and franchises move into there is a secondary market for these properties for used car dealerships. Typically within the marketplace, it's either sold outright or the parent company that moved still owns it and they sell used cars on site that they couldn't sell on site in their certified lots. So basically anything that doesn't quite meet the bar for that business enterprise the lesser stock gets sold off. So in my opinion, it doesn't quite meet the cost approach where I think the board was right by applying an income approach. So that's what we're doing here today. So below that, they just speak to how the board accepts that although auto malls and the agglomeration of auto ship dealers located in different sections of the city have characteristics similar to regional retail with national rather than local tenants, the board satisfied that the subject is similar, although not identical, to large national international retail properties located in or near regional shopping facilities. So what they're speaking there is they've admitted, and everyone's quite aware that these are all owner occupied. What kind of property are you going to use to generate an income approach from it? They've already highlighted it here. So here it's quite clear that we should be looking at a retail format. We should be looking at retail locations with big box type stores, similar locations. So that's why the comparables that you see are what they are, because we already have good indicator what the board's already ordered before at the municipal board level, and after looking at the marketplace, I don't believe that we should differ from that. I think it's the best comparable as far as an income approach would go, and I think it should be still used as it made a lot of rational sense. The only thing that I put a caveat on that is I think an incomplete retail income stream should be put on. Some of these orders, they kind of pick and choose what they'll bring in, what they'll kind of go a little bit all over the place. But realistically, when we go back to the board, we'll be going to a full retail parameters and on the subject property for that appeal. So that's what I tried to do here today as well. So as we go along, that's pretty much all I'll touch on the municipal court orders. Aside from that, the board has heard this argument many times. I'm sure we have an educated panel here today. With that, I feel that the value at $5,292,000 is appropriately supported by the market evidence that we provided, and that I'm open to questions.
Marcelo, any questions?
Yes, I have a few questions. Looking at your page 6 in your rent comparables, there is one rent in that entire list that is near your modeled rent. Most are above. Now, can you speak to how the model was adjusting the rent, or was this adjusted by someone else? And
No, this is straight done by the model. I haven't made any adjustments to these. I looked out in the marketplace to see what you would be paying, and it hovers at around $19, $18. If you go to more intense development, you can get even higher than that in the $20, $30, $25 to $30 range. I kind of filtered a little bit of those out, as I don't think it's a fair comparison to bring in all Keniston common area type or those type of rents. I look citywide. So when we're looking at an overall, we see what the numbers that are in place.
you have a couple of comparables that are from Pembina Highway, 2195. What area is that?
That would be further down. 29.
Somewhere near the University of Manitoba?
Yeah, further down.
Okay. Now, and you found no leases that were closer to the subject?
No, that like these are the leases that I found that started approaching the reference date, or as close to as I can. As you can see, it dates all the way down to 2013. Because simply these are usually owner occupied, even retail is usually owner occupied. So this is the cleanest amount of data that I could bring in that reflects the age of the properties that are under appeal here today. So this is our standard comp sheet for all car dealerships. It gives a good cross section throughout the city. You have on Keniston, you have on St. James, you have on Pembina, you have on Portage, you have on Ellis, you have on Regent. It pretty much does a whole cross section throughout the city.
And the subject was built in 1979. I believe you have two comparables that are below the year 2000.
The storefront, the addition was built in 2009. The original building, which was a smaller section of it, was built in 1950. So the effective age we have is 1970.
Okay. Now, just looking at some of the addresses here, at Sterling Mine, that is in the Keniston common area, the site of the not the Costco, the IKEA, those areas around there.
Yeah, that would be around between IKEA and I guess the best way to put it is the outlet mall.
Right. Okay. And you have some stuff here, for example, 1485 Portage Avenue, that is Polo Park.
Yep.
Okay. 3673 Portage Avenue, that's Unicity.
Correct.
Okay. And everything around St. James is the areas around Polo Park, correct?
Right. As I indicated, I look for the as the order indicated, where your more national chains would be, but I also looked where most of the subject properties would be for the car dealership groups, and we tried to match where and look where those would be. So we're trying to cover all bases here for a citywide approach.
Okay. And you would say that the area around Pembina Highway that the subject is located in is comparable to those other areas that you have here?
Oh yes, there's lots of retail development as you go for car dealerships all the way down Pembina. You can, it's a strip similar to Regent, similar to Phillips, similar to Portage. There's lots.
Okay. And most of the development in this area is car oriented, but older. Would you agree?
Generally, yeah, generally.
Okay. Okay,
As you go further down Penn Road, it's a bit more, obviously it's newer, but as you go towards more to the city center, it's older development, yes.
okay. So I'll flip to page 9 where you have your sales comparables. Now, you mentioned that you've reviewed all of these sales. So this is that verification process that you go through.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. Okay. And have you contacted any of the owners regarding these sales?
The two Pattison group, obviously, contacted them, sent emails, questioned that. As far as the Waverly properties and the Portage property, we sent out sales questionnaires, and sales questionnaires clearly indicated that there were no business components with it. So that's sworn to be, signed, authorized to be complete and true and accurate. So we stop at that. I've looked also at other properties, including 1900 Portage, where there was a sale there as well. It doesn't make it onto this list. There's some other ones, but it's going to come up today. That's been verified as land only. So land building.
And with reference to the Pattison sale, I believe you were speaking about 1496 region. It's actually 1486, is it not?
I believe there's a small sliver parcel there that was also purchased. So we had 1496. The civic address was 1486. It may have been, like I spoke with the contact person that was held out to be the representative, and they spoke with their property purchase department. Their so it's confirmed.
And you did note that the owner or the leasee, which was Jim Pattison, had the option to purchase this property. So they exercised that option. However, I did catch in your commentary that you said that the owner could not walk away from the sale.
No. Just so we're clear, they had an appraisal done on the building. On both purchase. They obviously they did their due diligence. They had agreed upon purchase price before entering in. Once they signed up, there was 2 terms. They had the option to purchase at end of each term. They obviously executed that at the first term and the end of the first term, but it was at their option to either buy or walk away. The ownership group had they had no ability to not sell. That was part of
Where is that confirmed in?
On the email. Bear with me here. Page 17. And there's another one for the other property. This is just the 1486 region. There's one on Hammond as well. Closed on March 1st, 2017. The property was leased with an above market rent. As indicated, it was about $24, $25 rent. If I do the math on it, it's been a while since I've done it. So again, above market, which is hovering around $18, $19. The property was leased with an above market rent with the intent to purchase. The purchase price was based on an appraisal that was completed around the time that the lease was entered into. We don't have a copy of the appraisal, but the price was real estate only and did not include cost of value of equipment. They were already the franchise there. They were occupied in full. So when we went through this is just me calling her up. She answered a lot of questions to me verbally over the phone, and then she followed up with confirming with what we were asking for. So
okay, but you still haven't answered the question about whether the owner could walk away from the sale.
no, I did answer it twice now. They could not.
Okay, so you're verbally entering that in. You're saying that.
This is their letter they wrote to me. We confirmed this.
No, the letter, I understand the letter's intent and what the letter says, but at no point does it actually indicate that the owner could walk away from the sale.
I never said they could.
You actually said the owner could not walk away from the sale.
Yeah, sorry, maybe there's some connection issue. I'm being clear. After talking with the ownership representative and having them send me this, it was clear that there was a purchase agreement that they entered into, with the option was only to Pattison to either purchase or walk away. So it was an offer to.
Okay.
Unless you have other information to clarify or or go over on this or present new, I have to go with what they indicated to us, so. It was clearly an agreement to purchase and quite frankly, a very smart one. If its site isn't doing well, they don't like what they see, they had the option to walk away. And obviously with purchasing
Okay.
after the first term, it was a good location.
Right. Now, you also include some advertising information. Now, have any of these properties sold?
As far as the two on Regent,
Yeah.
yes, but they were post-reference, so I'm not going to be speaking to them.
Okay.
These were advertised prior to the reference date. They sold to the reference date.
Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Cynthia, any questions?
Just one. I had some questions about your comps, but I think Mr. Navarro asked most of them and you answered. I just with the cap rate, just for the rest of the properties as well, I'm not sure if it's in dispute here or not, but would it fall under your retail power center? Is that where it would be?
Typically, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I'm just looking for exactly how the order laid itself out. We want to be in a more, what's the best way to say it? More economic generating site, meaning you're not owning a wherever, you're at a pole park, you're at one of the major developments or close to it. You don't have to be right in it, you should be close to it. And then I look for the age of the properties. Typically, what you see as these properties age, the franchises and manufacturers went out and they arranged for new sites to be developed. So most of these sites that you'll see under appeal are from 2000 or so greater, or they'll put additions onto it to make it equivalent or greater. So that's why you see the comparables kind of starting for an effective age around 2000 to make everything equal. I'm not looking for a big box building that is out in an industrial park that really doesn't have any relationship to what you would see the order indicating or what they're actually doing on site. So.
Okay, but the cap rate on this property, that was model driven?
Yes.
And the model would be based, it would be looking under the category of retail power center neighborhood. Would that be where it would be falling?
But it also takes into account, the building characteristics, location, age.
Yeah, no, understood. Yeah, I'm just trying to see where.
So it's not like a straight cap for the whole.
Okay, so given that this particular one falls towards the high end of your range there, correct? Yeah, okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Gisela?
I just have one question, and that is on your rent comparables on page 8.
Yeah.
Number 8 and number 11 are both at 2195 Pembina Highway. I'm trying to.
They're different units.
Is that an auto mall of some kind? I'm trying to.
Bear with me. I'll tell you the exact ones. Play catch up here. I had my paper right in front of me. I can answer you instantly, but 2195 is Pembina Unit 2 is Salvation Army Thrift Store, and then just 2195, which is a different unit, is Part Source. So they're on a large property, and there is full buildings on it. So these are two separate CRUs.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. I didn't notice any dates on those brochures you submitted into evidence.
Yep. Nope. Bear with me here. I'll get back to them. No, I don't believe they had. 1 second here, but you see the property taxes for 2019. Typically, when they don't advertise, like I'm looking for the same thing you are, an actual date that shows it's not post-reference. One of the good things to look for is what the property taxes are being quoted on. And they're obviously quoting 2019 because that'd be the year. They're not going to quote on it 2022 because obviously that's a few down. So, so this is definitely prior to that, prior to the reference date. And then the second one is also 2000. So on page 24, you see 19, and on page 20, you see 2009. So again, I look at the marketplace. These did sell, but I can't speak to the sale of the actual price. And just so we're clear, the one on page 20 was a COVID site. There was a lease in place there for a little bit. I did not use that lease, but anyway to it. That was more of an emergency measure by the province. They had a number of sites throughout the city that they paid X amount for. None of those would be so.
Okay, my other question is the board orders, and while we put the appropriate weight on board orders, we don't compare assessments, but these orders are from 2002, 2003.
Yeah, and even older.
They're over 20 years old. Is there anything more current?
No, see, that's kind of just so we're clear. Unit 90 was the very last newest order, and it's literally from what's the date on it? I mean, it's to the April 1st or April 5th and 6th, 2004. It's nearly 20 years old. That's the last one that actually went to hearing. So that's why it's being referenced. And then when I was even, before I went through the case management, started preparing everything to go to appeal at the municipal board, I was even unaware of all the other orders that highlighted exactly the same rationale that I came to when picking comparables and what to do here, where they've already done that. So it's nice to see they're in the same vein of where I was thinking, but that's the last block of orders that we have. These haven't gone. So when we go back to the municipal board, we have our test case, which is for Unit 90. We're going to go and do a fresh look at everything. We'll explore whatever we have to, and then we're going to get an order for that. But from the information that I've looked through, I can't turn away from the rationale that's in the order highlighted in yellow and in red, because quite frankly, that's where my mind's eye already went to. And obviously a significant amount of people already went there before me, some odd years ago. So if I had a newer order to bring in, I would. But that's the last one. And then obviously the follow-ups for that.
Okay, thank you. That was my only series of questions. And Marcelo, you can proceed with your presentation.
That's 680 Pembina Highway. It's known as Fort Rouge Auto Body, or F. The client is Fort Rouge Auto Body. The property owner is FTJL Holdings Incorporated. We are looking at a leasable area of 27,541 square feet. Wall height is between 13 and 14 feet, and the effective age is 1979. If you look at page 6, you can see the general location and an overhead view and a street view on page 7. And you can see the sections that were put together combining this building. So there was a 1950 section, 53, 76, and the newest section was built in 2009. I can skip over the comparisons and go straight to the income approach. So we looked for comparables that were somewhat closer to the subject. So we looked at several rents here at 555 Pembina Highway, 460 Pembina Highway, 669 Pembina Highway, 560 Pembina Highway, and 1819 Pembina Highway. Now, these are they have similar zoning, but they are retail spaces, office spaces, automotive. So they're a mixture of everything in that strip of Pembina Highway. Now, We do think that this area would operate slightly differently than, say, an area south of the subject. There was that comparable that the assessor had of near the University of Manitoba. That is already in the Pembina School Division, whereas this one is in Winnipeg School Division. So right off the bat, you would see differences on the expense side, just dealing with the taxes. However, we think that the rents in the area of the subject would be lower. So we've gone with a rent of $11.80 per square foot. Vacancy of 2%. Obviously, there's no vacancy here, so we have to go with something that is market. Shortfall of $6. Non-recoverable expenses, again, we haven't deviated from this. I don't think anyone here has not heard the non-recoverable expense study, correct?
I think you're correct.
Okay, Jeremy, you've heard it. Okay, so I don't need to go that. Again, we've gone with the 5%, and then there is a 2% for structural reserve. Whereas the city uses 3%, I believe 2% for structural reserve and then 1% for other. We disagree with that, and we've indicated this in our non-recoverable expense study. So I'll just leave it at that. In terms of the capitalization rate, we've indicated two charts here, and this is specifically dealing with auto use. Where we have submitted both an industrial capitalization rate study and a retail capitalization rate study. Now, we note that this property is a zone C2, so we would also lean more towards the retail side. And we don't think this is top quality retail. We don't think it's the lowest quality. We do think it's somewhere in the middle. So we've gone with a capitalization rate of 7.25. And I know that there's a section there that says 7.50, but we have not gone with the 7.25 or 7.50 cap rate. So blended together, we came up with 1180. I'm sorry, but that should actually be a 2% vacancy, not a 4%. 6% other. If you just hold on, I can actually calculate this because I have the calculation here. Would we be able to take like a 2-minute?
Sure, we'll give you a 5-minute recess. We will resume the meeting, and the property in question we're discussing is 680 Pembina Highway.
Right. So I'll go over the income approach summary. And as I mentioned, there was an error in terms of the vacancy allowance that was put into this report. It stated 4%. It's actually 2%. So I've made that adjustment. It doesn't change the potential rent. That is still at $11.80. That comes to $324,984 as you have in your side too. The vacancy allowance at 2% equals $6,500. So the effective market income is $324,984. Now, shortfall obviously changes because the vacancy rate has changed. So where it was $6,610, it is now $3,305.
I thought the rent was $324,984.
Yes.
And then don't you subtract the vacancy of that?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
318,484.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
Now-
Marcelo, did you say 318?
484.
484. That's the rent with the vacancy removed.
Yes,
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so again, shortfall has changed because vacancy has changed, so it is now $3,305. Management has not changed and other has not changed. So those remain the same. So we have a total of $25,599. So we subtract that from the 318,484, and that gives us a net operating income of 292,885. And we applied a capitalization rate of 7.25 to that. So the value, capitalized value, is $4,039,797, or $4,040,000 rounded. Okay, so in terms of the appendix, very small. I've just included the income and expenses that they've submitted. Of course, this is owner occupied, so they're only reporting on the expense side. And that is the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jeremy, any questions?
Oh, sorry. I did have a rebuttal. I don't know when I should do that.
Well, we can do that after these questions.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, it's muted.
Oh.
I'll figure it out one day, but I'll get it right one day. I only have a few general questions and then one off question. We've all heard these arguments. It's an educated panel today. I don't think we need to weigh down on everything here, but typically you have 5 comparisons on Pembina, or comparables on Pembina, correct?
Correct.
What is the reason why it's in red?
The 2 upper ones are auto use. Specifically, they are smaller units, but that is why I highlighted them.
So vehicle service garage type rents.
Yeah, exactly.
And that would explain the higher rents, because typically what I've seen for VSGs, they typically go, some of them, around there, depending on economic development or on specific.
Right, and they tend to be substantially smaller spaces too, for the most part. So
you're not using the big box kind of thing for the first 2 ones in red, is what I was clarifying. So
well,
the next
okay, so just so I give you an explanation about that. So I believe that 560 Pembina is a community shopping center. And 6819 is, again, one of those smaller shopping. I wouldn't call it a center. It's a location. It's actually across the street, and it offers retail, office on multiple levels. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pick out big box stores for this location when really it's not in the location of, other big box locations. I mean, I can't compare it to Sterling Lion or Polo Park area, or even that area around St. James. I mean, that's where I thought properties specifically in that area would probably be a better indicator of what rent is like in the area. And then I also offered some other auto use around the city.
Yeah, no problem.
That's
and that's why I was going to touch base on the nearly 48,000 combat, $5.59. Clearly, it stands out that it's quite off market, regardless of how you look at it.
It's a larger space, so you would note that again, this concept of economies of scale comes into play, where smaller spaces rent for higher amounts. The idea.
What is the tenant? Who is the tenant for the 48,000 square feet or so?
Just give me a second. I can actually answer that.
Reason why I ask is because at I don't have a civic address for 560 Pembina. And if I look all
I
around
think
it,
it's actually, yeah, I believe it actually is the McMunn and Yates.
okay,
I can verify.
yeah, no problem. That just can't be the correct. I didn't think that would be
Yeah.
the correct.
Yeah,
So if I look at the McMunn and Yates, that would be 600 Pembina.
yeah. Let me just. Unfortunately, my computer is freezing up here, so. Yeah. So I mean, the argument is that we think that there should be a lower rate in this area. There is traffic flow there. We're going to admit, but this is not the hub that those other areas are. So that's why we adjusted the rent to $11.80.
Okay. Just bear with me here. I'm just double checking something. Okay, because when I go through the rent now, they have a $8.40 rent at McMunn and Yates now. But regardless, thank you for the comparable. I wanted to know which one that was because I couldn't locate it.
Yeah.
And now my laptop's freezing. Great. Okay, perfect. Okay. Aside from that, don't really have many other questions. You clarified the vacancy issue. Thank you for that. Other than that, no questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Cynthia, any questions?
Sorry. I apologize. I did have one indirect question. And this is more related to my brief. You mentioned the issue with 1486 or 1496 Regent as far as the above market lease. Is there anything incorrect in your opinion? Does it sound like you know something? And if you feel there's anything incorrect on that, can you please come forth with it? That way I can check. This is coming.
Yeah. So I mean, I had a look at the lease.
You guys are freezing there.
Yeah, I'm hearing it cut off too.
And that's why I'm able to speak. So Pattison Group did Jim Pattison did exercise the option to purchase. Included in the lease, though, was an exit option for the owner too. So when you mentioned that the owner couldn't back out of this deal, well, that's not reality. They could back out. I read it in the lease, but this is just verbal evidence that I can.
I'll just clarify. I never spoke. I never got the lease. I never got the appraisal. Was done with it. I went straight to the source. They talked to the real estate end. They got back to
right.
They confirmed for me.
And this is kind of what the rebuttal is leading to. So I think we can, after the questions, we can probably lead into the rebuttal.
Okay,
that's the only other question.
Let's move on. Cynthia?
Just one, Marcelo, on your comps, auto use around the city. So I'm looking at these and I'm just wondering how you see these locations in comparison to the subject property.
Scurfield is out of the way. It's in an industrial park. Provencher, I believe, is, I'm going to say it's similar. McPhillip Street is probably a little bit more intense in terms of the traffic flow. So some of them don't compare. King Edward would probably be high traffic flow as well. So some would compare, some wouldn't. And I guess that just balances itself out in terms of the average. But in terms of the property that we're looking at, specifically at this location, part of the issue with what I see in the assessor's comparables, and this is just my opinion, is that there are nodes within the city that are these well-known nodes that are high intensity, high density, high traffic, high volume. They're going to attract higher rents simply because of the number of people that they're going to attract. So this would be the Sterling Line area, the Polo Park area. I don't think that there is really a fair comparison between those areas and the part of Pembina that we're looking at. Or even the area south in near the University of Manitoba, where I think it's just a different location altogether.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Giselle.
No, my questions have been answered. Thank you.
I just have one question. You have a median rent of $14.39, yet you picked the rent for this at $11.80.
Yeah. So, I mean, we come back to this issue of why we adjust the rents. Well, it's because we're adjusting for the size of the property. So we've got 27,000 square feet on one side versus properties that are in the, 4,000 square foot range. We do have one larger property at 500 or 600 Pembina Highway, and that one, I just believe Mr. Pohl said that it had been recently renewed at $8 plus, but
Well, that could be post reference.
yeah, that could be post reference, so I don't know. What ours says here is, yeah, we don't have the end date of lease on that one. So that's exactly the reason, is that we're adjusting for the size of it. We have to. I mean,
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
On your page 12, and this is just clarification, capitalization rate. The assessor in this case applied a cap rate of 7.25 and the rate he applied 7.0.
I believe I already spoke to it while I was speaking about it, that there was an error up there. So
And
the one that I do apply is 7.25.
yet at the end of this paragraph, therefore we will apply a cap rate of 7.5.
Yeah, no. 7.
That's wrong too.
Yeah, I would say that paragraph disregard.
Okay.
And what we're doing is essentially looking at the retail cap rates that you're seeing in the chart there. So we're considering this as retail standard quality, and we're picking a cap rate in between there.
Okay,
So
no, that's fine. That concludes that property. The next one is 3081 Portage Avenue, and
I think we have to rebuttal.
oh, sorry. Yeah. Do we have the rebuttal statement?
It's going to be at the bottom.
Oh, right. Has everybody got the rebuttal?
I've got it. Thank you.
And Mr. Assessor, did you get my
Is it
email?
the end or?
It's at the bottom.
Yeah, very well, second from the bottom.
Okay, got it.
Okay, Marcelo, you can proceed.
Okay, the first page, or page 2, I don't think is really a concern right now. I think we'll probably speak to it a little bit later. However, regarding the report itself, we don't have a copy of the appraisal report. And nobody seems to be able to find it. But what we did find out is when the actual report was commissioned or done. And it was in July 2010. Now, again, that is roughly 7 years before the sale. They buy it for as an option. It's not on the market. I guess you could view it as arm's length. Is it representative of the market value of the property? Again, the appraisal report was from 2010, so I don't think it really it's an effective view of the market in at the time of the sale. Now, what we do know is that following the purchase of the property was essentially demolished and rebuilt. So as to how much weight they put on that, how much weight to put on that appraisal report, I'll leave that to you. Again, it occurred long before the property sold.
Well, the reality is nobody has the appraisal report,
Nobody has it,
including us.
and we can't, we can't dissect it. Not that not that the owner would give us permission to. I don't know. But the only thing that we were able to make out is exactly when it was done. And there was a letter that was sent which showed the information as to when the property, when the report was commissioned. And that we did have a copy of. So I'll leave that where it is. I understand that you've spoken to a representative of the company and we have as well. So.
And that's it.
That's it. Simple.
Jeremy, any questions?
No, I'll just clarify. Speaking to the appraisal, like, I mean, I never saw the appraisal, I never saw the lease. I went straight to the person. If she got it to me wrong or if I misheard, it seemed like it's a very minor point whether the property owner had a choice to say no or say yes. Ultimately, it was sold, it was purchased. But as far as it being torn down and redone, that is something that happens all the time for car dealerships. You look at Jerry Gordon's Mazda, he put a brand new frontage on his store, everything, he redid it. And then he got a letter when there was a vacancy in Waverly and was told to move. If your manufacturer says something as a franchisee, you do it. So when they purchased that, I don't believe several years, almost a decade down the road, that tearing that down had any influence over the price that they purchased, because I don't think it would have been known to either party.
And that's exactly the point that we're trying to make, is that.
But just so we're clear, as you can see, I've changed the comparables where I used to put the auto related or those couple rents in where it's a little. I'm not putting that in this time. I'm relying solely on the retail comparisons. So it's a minor point.
Right. Good enough.
Okay, Cynthia,
Sorry, one other thing. Sorry, you glossed over it on page 2 of your rebuttal. You have 128,104 comparison on Unicity. What is that?
That I believe would be a Walmart.
Okay, and I specifically ended it at around 65,000 square feet, because once you start bringing in departmental stores, that is a different animal.
Right. So
rents go very low, and there's different circumstances for that. So
yeah,
I'm
and I understand that, Mr. Bull. And that wasn't the purpose of, it's just that I didn't have time to separate these out, but you're right. That space, that CRU does not belong in this list. It's simply there because it was grouped together with these other CRUs. Now, what I was pointing at was the fact that the 20,201 CRU, which we can hopefully say that it was for I believe the sport check.
Might be fair comparison.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And there are other CRUs in that very same area which have lower rents that are of similar size. So, I just left the argument that is that they can vary even within that grouping of properties.
And just so we're clear, I'm looking at startup dates closer to the reference date. So if there's a contract rent that was 15 years ago, I've left it as such. I'm pushing the reference date and catching any step-ups.
Right.
Okay. That's all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia
I have no questions on the rebuttal, thanks.
and Gisela.
I have no questions. Thank you.
I have no questions. So the next property is 3081 Portage. And let's move on, gentlemen. Jeremy, you can proceed.
Thank you. I'll be really quick as we move out from this point, because I think we've covered all the topics and it's going to be short to the point. Roll number is 074326202000 3081 Portage Avenue. We have a assessed value for the 2023 assessment of $6,221,000. This is an older dealership built in 1965. We have effectively the same age on it. The leasable area is 31,568 square feet. We see that the land area is quite large at over 222,000 square feet. It's quite large. If we look at my page 7, as you can see, it backs on to the Sturgeon Creek. There's high development multifamily around there. You can kind of see it off to the left, and if I boot up further, you look at the other side of it, it's developed on the other side, multifamily. So there is some argument that it could be torn down and maybe converted over to multifamily, as that is quite strong in that area. You can see it on my page 9 behind. You can see them there behind, and also to the northeast, I guess you would say, on the other side of the bank, the Sturgeon Creek. So I'm not going to be exploring that today, but there is a residual. If this was going to be purchased, that this would be scraped and simply converted into multifamily, which would have a very good.
Well, I'll just have to stop you there. That's pure speculation.
No, I'll take the board out from the point forward from the board, but I mean, I'd have to look at this overall. What I'm saying is right now, I'm valuing it as I think it sits as worth the property. So, but I'll move on from that. So if we go up to the comparisons, or I should say the comparisons are the same. On page 3 is the workup. We see that we have $10.66, $14.38, and $15.46 for an overall PGI of 450,000 approximately, applied to the 31,568 square feet. Gives your obviously PGI, your vacancy at 2%, non-recoverables at 3%, and shortfall at $6. Gives us a net operating income of $424,132, capped at 7.25%. Gives us our value at $5,850,000. We again have an additional land, which was kind of leading into. There is some excess land at 371,000 square feet, which gives us our total of $6,221,000. So overall, it is what it is. It's an older dealership. I think there's some inherent value in the actual lot to be reconverted to something else, but I'm not going to be bringing a secondary valuation at this point in time. I think the car dealership, or as you see it here, should be valued as such. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Marcelo?
These are the same comparables that you used for the previous property?
All the same, yes.
Okay, and obviously standard question and probably standard response. This was all model.
Yes. Even the excess land I didn't change. Simply what I was going to is what I was trying to refer to is if you're going to be looking at what it could possibly be outside of it, you would look to multifamily as it's all.
I think that's good enough, and I'm good with my questions.
Okay, thank you. Cynthia?
Just one, Jeremy, do you have a workup? Maybe I'm missing it here, the workup on the land?
No, there was no workup on the land. That's why maybe I didn't speak to it properly. I'm not going to be exploring anything further than that. It was simply the 371,000 additional land to the back. If you look on page,
Yeah, I could see there's a fair amount of land there. I just wondered what you applied on that. That's all.
Well, I can give you the area, but I mean, realistically, I'm not bringing any comparables because I'm not pushing that. But what I'm saying is, if you're looking at it from a purchase perspective, they may decide to redevelop the site, and there would be potential for the highest and best use fits it. All the rest of it does happen. This seems to be a property, when you look at it, there is a candidate for that. And that's why I was looking to the left, and you see the multifamily there, and you look behind, you see it there. It meets zoning and everything.
Okay, so the land is not under dispute. Is that what we're saying?
No, and I don't.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you. Then I have no further questions. Thank you. That's it.
Gisela?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. So Marcelo, you can make your presentation.
Okay, so this is 3081 Portage Avenue, and on page 6, you can see the overhead picture, bird's eye view, street view. What I will say about some of these briefs is that you'll notice a weight difference between some of them. And that is specifically because this is a former dealership. In no way would this ever be considered for a new car dealership today. It doesn't meet the requirements that manufacturers push in terms of their real estate today. So this would serve possibly as a used car dealership and maybe some other uses, but it's not going to be a new car dealership unless it gets knocked down and they build a new car dealership there. So we're valuing the physical assets as they fit today. And so if you turn to page 12, you can see that, again, we've looked at some rents that are closer to the area of the subject. And they vary. Again, there are different spaces in general. I think we are looking at 31,568 square feet of leasable area. And we have some as high as 128,000. I believe that is probably one that you can say is low because of the size of the property. But I mean, we've adjusted the rent obviously to look at the property itself and what it's gaining right now in terms of rent. And it's not really doing too well in terms of income potential. You can see that there is a contract rent there at $5.70, and we've adjusted the areas based on, you know, some comparables that we've looked at. So we've given part of it $9.50, part of it $5, part of it $12. Blended together, we have $9.63. And unfortunately, we don't think it's as high as $14. Again, it's a difference of opinion. In terms of the vacancy, we've given it 2%. There is, in our opinion, no vacancy here. So we haven't given it a vacancy, a shortfall of $6. And I believe in this case, we have given it a $7.50 cap rate. And again, that kind of speaks to the property itself and its, I guess, its potential uses at this point. So in terms of the income value, we are looking at $304,102 in terms of potential minus the 2%. That's $298,020. We've taken out allowance of $12,729. That includes the shortfall management and the other. In terms of the net operating income, there is $293,291. We've capitalized that, and we've given it an income value of $3,910,551. We've put in a land value of $371,000 to come up with an indicated market value of $4,281,551. And that is where I'm at. The rest of it is just simply the income expenses that they've submitted.
Okay, thank you very much. Jeremy, any questions?
Just a couple. Obviously, this is an older used car dealership. Was a former car dealer, full service car dealership is no longer being used as such, correct?
Correct.
When I'm looking at this, it is owner occupied.
No, it is partially owner occupied.
Majority, the one tenant, but majority it is owner occupied majority, right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And this is kind of where I look at this property and I have to, is this more used as a holding for potential development for anything else? Has there been any permits taken out, any exploration of this? It seems like a prime location to be redeveloped into, as you see in your pictures that you have all around there.
So I've, and again, we can take this at, I'm speaking to this verbally. I have discussed this with the owners, and my understanding is that they have looked at other uses, other potential uses. However, at this point, they haven't been able to arrange an agreement with the city of Winnipeg. So part of the property, part of the problem is that they have to replace a lot of the services, including the main water and sewer lines. And that is apparently a huge undertaking. And they haven't been able to come to an agreement on terms. So nothing's getting built until such time as they feel that it would be a proper time to develop the property. But at this point, it's likely at its highest and best use, taking into account the huge investment that they're going to have to undertake in terms of the infrastructure. So
Fair enough. That's the only question I really had. You kind of answered it. It sticks out like a sore thumb in my mind's eye when I'm looking at the site. So thanks for answering.
Yeah, I don't think the adjacent properties had a problem. I think this one, it's kind of unique. They did, I don't have the engineering reports, but apparently they did the engineering reports on it and said everything has to be basically stripped out, replaced, and again, fed out there. It would be a huge expense for them. Usually that type of expense is cost shared. And from my understanding, the city wasn't willing to cost share.
That's okay. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Giselle?
I'm just wondering, on your page 14, could you tell me what the other income is? There's other income of $8,000.
Miscellaneous. I don't know what it is. We read it in the report and we don't remove it, so it's in there.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
So your questions, thank you. And I have no questions. So we will proceed on to the next property, 2554 Portage Avenue. And Jeremy, you can proceed.
Give me one moment, please. Okay. Okay, so roll number is 075690661000, 2554 Portage Avenue. For the 2023 assessment, the assessed value is $5,587,000. We see that they actually are built was 1963. There's an addition put on, and the effective age that we have in place is for 2000. The leasable area is 30,060 square feet. If we go down to my page 8, shows the two CRUs that are on the property. One is the car dealership, the other one is the part source. I've spoken with the contact person. These are land leases that were in place at the time. And I'll kind of, if you look on page 9, is the other two pictures of the property. So we go down to my page 56. We see that the INE that they submitted, and they indicate that it is a land lease. So, and that's followed on page 57 as well. If there's any land lease existing, please provide, and then they look at this land lease. So when I called up, and I did this a number of years back, investigating this property, was under appeal with another agent. The contact person just basically said it's a land lease. We would just lease the site, put up the infrastructure. So now this is the way that it sits. So from that, we're going to do the same market comparison. Comparables all apply the same equitable treatment of this property as the other properties that we have on page 58 and 59 of the COVID reports, and indicating that it's a minor impact. From that point, we can move away from that. We've already touched on the orders. We've already touched on the comparables. So we'll just go straight to the workups themselves. So we have one for the retail warehouse and one for the car dealership. And obviously, since we're using retail warehouse comparables, either one would apply here. So what we have here is on page 3 for the retail warehouse, which is the part source. We have approximately $14.12. Obviously, there is one CRU for 100. Honestly, I'm not even sure what the 128 square feet is for $24. Apologize, I'm blanking on that one. I don't think there's an ATM. That might be that. So we have overall PGI of 105,521 square feet, or dollars, I should say, for PGI applied to the 7383 square feet. We have 4% for vacancy, which produces effective gross income of $101,300. Expenses at 3%, shortfall at $650, and for a net operating income of $96,341, capped at 5.75%, gives us $1,675,000. Over to the car dealership on page 4. It's vacant at the time, but we have a model rent of $12.83 put on it for the 22,672 square feet, which produces a PGI of 290,946. For our same parameters, standard parameters apply, which is 2% for the vacancy for the car dealerships, and then effective gross income, which is $285,127. Our non-recoverable expenses again are 3% and shortfall at 6%. Produces a net operating income of $273,852, capped at 7%, gives us our $3,912,000. A summary is on page 5, which blends it together, which gets us back to the $5,587,000. So from that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Marcelo.
And these are the same, again, these are the same leases that you've looked at in the previous one. Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
No questions, thank you.
And Giselle.
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions. So Marcelo, you can proceed with your presentation.
Okay. So this is 2554 Pembina Highway. It's right on the corner of Moray and Portage Avenue. As you're going north and exiting east, it's right on the right-hand side. Used to be a car dealership. It's no longer a car dealership. May serve as an auto, like a used auto car dealership, but it's not going to be serving as a used car dealership in the future. There are 2 leases in this, or 2 CRUs in this location. One is a parts source and the other one to be determined. If you look at our page 12, we looked at, again, we have the standard auto use around the city and properties in the Portage Avenue area. We've applied a rent of $10 to the vacant space of $22,677 and the rent of $13, which is the land lease amount for the other CRU. In terms of the vacancy and other adjustments, I will ask you to turn to page 14. So we've applied a vacancy of 5% for VCD and 4% for the retail in this location. An effective market rent of, non-recoverables of 7%. Shortfall combined is $6.75. The net operating income combined is $276,185. And I'm just going to. And the combined cap rate is $7.17. We've applied $7.25 to the VCD and 7% to the retail. Combined, the income value is $3,850,712 or $3,851,000. And again, we've included the income and expense information that's been submitted. Otherwise, I'm looking for questions now.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any questions?
No, I don't have any.
Thank you, Cynthia.
No questions, thank you.
And Gisela?
No, thank you very much.
And I have no questions. So that concludes that part. The next one on the docket is 3636 Portage. And Jeremy, you can proceed.
Just bear with me as I load it up. Okay. Roll number is 075691375555, 3636 Portage. The 2023 census for 6,341,000. It is River City Board. Built in 1997, or I should say built in 1998, had an addition on 2005, has an effective age of 1997, and a leasable area total of 33,000 square feet. So if we go over to page 7, is the property itself. It is large. It's a large property, a large frontage on Portage, and as you can see, it is what it is. So on the comparables are the exact same comparables that we use. All arguments are the same. If you look at the workup, it is on page 3. Very simple, 33,000 square feet. We have $13.77, which produces a PGI of 454,410. Our same standard parameters apply to the PGI: 2% for vacancy, 3% for non-recoverable, $6 for shortfall. Gives us a net operating income of $428,002, capped at 6.75. Gives us our value at $6,340,770, or rounded to $6,341,000. So with that, I'm open to questions.
And Marcelo, any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. These are, again, the same comparables, same cap rate information, same sale information, everything is same. So I think we've covered everything.
Okay, thank you. Cynthia?
No questions, thank you.
Gisela?
No questions. Thank you.
I think we'll take a 5-minute recess and reconvene. And we'll reconvene the hearing, and property question is 3636 Portage Avenue, and Marcelo, you can proceed.
Okay, so this is 3636 Portage. This is River City Ford. On page 6, you can see the overhead view, and on page 7, the street view. So this is an actual car dealership. It's not a used car dealership. If you turn to page 12, you can see some of the rents that we looked at. We've gone with a $12.25 rent. That gives us a market income of $404,250, a vacancy allowance of 2%, and a shortfall of $6 per square foot. You can ignore that capitalization rate paragraph. We've gone with the 7% capitalization rate. That is based on the retail standard quality. We still think that this is actually within that standard quality and not the retail top quality. So on page 14, you see the summary. And you can see a net operating income of $364,473, a capitalization rate of 7%, giving us a value of $5,206,764, or $5,207,000 rounded. You can turn through the package. We include the expense side of the reporting. This is owner occupied, so there is no income. And then we include some additional market data coming from Scotiabank, which speaks about the auto car market during the pandemic. the focus was generally looking at the change in the market during the pandemic. And if you turn to page 39, you can see that there was a global decline on, actually on page 38, you can see the global effects of the pandemic on the auto market. On page 39, you can see more localized Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. So there was general decline throughout the auto car market. Now this is predicting, since they're looking at 2020 data, they're predicting for 2021. They are predicting a recovery, at least that's what the information says. However, I don't think that actually materialized. So part of the issue going forward were supply chain issues and the issue with computer parts coming from China as they were on lockdown as well. So the auto market changed. Following that on page, I believe it is 43, you can see that we also looked at buyer sentiment. So we included this report in there to, given this car gurus went through the task of looking at how the change in the auto market was perceived by the purchaser. So what they're basically detailing here is that there is a shift in the market. They are looking more so at the market changing in terms of people buying more online, and whether there is, I guess what we're leading to is whether, the dealership model is something that will change going forward. At this moment, it's too early to say. And the last article, again, speaks about, the change in the auto market, the effects of the pandemic on the auto market. So that is my information, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Jeremy.
No, I don't have any questions.
And Cynthia
No questions, thank you.
and Gisela.
Well, I'm just looking at, I just have one question. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. I'm looking at the property income and expense questionnaire that you've attached.
Yeah.
And it says that the net operating income is $1,050,000.
Yeah, it's internal. They own this location. They're an owner occupier.
Yeah.
So sometimes they include what is a book rent in there. But it's not reflective of really what's happening here because River City is the owner. So can't rent from yourself.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. So the value you're asking the board to look at is $5,207,000, correct?
And on page 15, you see,
I see a different number.
yeah, no, it's 5,207,000.
Okay, thank you. And that was the only question I had. That concludes that property. The next one on the docket is 670 Century Street. And Jeremy, you can proceed.
Sure. Roll number is 07569027600 670 Century. The 2023 assessment is for $8,155,000. This is a newer car dealership. It's 41,000 square feet. It's built in 2005 with an addition put on in 2020. We look to the next page. There's a sale in 2019 for $10,650,000. I did look at that sale. I'll go to that now. If you go down to page 7 is the photograph of the property. So it's on Century. If there's a hotel on one side, on behind it there's Leon's. So it's in that block. On the other opposite side there's Don Vito's. So it's nestled in there pretty good. High traffic flow area. If you look at Page 8 indicates they're partly owner occupied. Same scenario. Looks like it's a book rent in place, or two corporations where there's common ownership. And ultimately, I can't tell you, just so it kind of came up in the last appeal. If there's two corporations involved, and say the owner of the property is 99% owner of the property and 1% owner of the franchise, and the opposite's the other way around, where the franchise owns 1% of the property, 99% of the franchise, then ultimately you can kind of argue that it is two separate entities, even though they're loosely affiliated. But we will really never know that. I'm not sure how we can determine that. So it could be 50-50, it could be a mix of people involved, other than that there is common ownership here. So it does look like it's partly ownership, but realistically it's more the opposite way. So on the next page, we see the COVID reports. They report a moderate impact. And then on the following page, on page 11, for the next 5 pages, we look at the actual sale questionnaire, or sale questionnaire is the actual, I went away from the sales questionnaire and I went right to the status of title. I wanted to see what they paid, and I wanted to see what they paid on land transfer, what they declared a land transfer, property registry land transfer. So if we look at page 1, we can see that it is for the subject property. On page 2, apparently they have a significant mortgage. I don't think that's related. I think that's part of the corporation that they are part of. This property itself is inclusive of it. Obviously, we'd be talking about the property then highlighted in blue. But if we look on going down at page 3 and over to page 4, we see that the originating instruments on part 9, transfer of land, and the registration number is this property. We see that there was a sale in 2019, March 1st, for $10,650,000. And this is the same value that was declared market value to for land transfer for the taxes associated with that. So from that is a good sale. I'm not sure if Aldous will speak to it, or if they have any information from their ownership group, or could dive into it further than that. But they declared for the transfer of land, taxes associated with that, $10,650,000. So obviously they're not going to be included in any goodwill or any franchise or anything like that, because they're savvy enough not to want to pay more than their fair share of taxes. They've hired a tax agent today to represent their assessment of their property taxes. So I don't believe that anything would be involved in that. When you declare its fair market value at $10,650,000, then that's what it is. When we come up to the workup on page 3, it's a fairly simple workup again. 41,357 square feet at $13.92 gives us a potential gross income of $575,689. Our same standard parameters that we apply again to the PGI, which is 2% for vacancy, to give an effective gross income of $564,175, and then non-recoverable expenses at 3%, shortfall at $6, gives us a net operating income of $540,287. And then we cap it at 6.65. Obviously, it's a newer dealership in a St. James area. Good location, obviously, a lot of new development around it. Don Vito's was fairly recent. The hotels behind it was fairly recent. So you see that a higher cap, given the nature of the building being newer, is warranted at 6.65%. So capitalized value then gives us $8,154,000 or 55,000 rounded. And when we look at what our model projection is based on our market parameters, we see an actual sale that occurred roughly two and a half million on top of what we actually have. So with that, I think a conservative value is $8,155,000, and I think it should be perfect today. Adam, with questions.
Thank you, Marcelo.
I guess the first question would be whether you've actually done the sale verification and have followed up on this sale.
I haven't spoken to anyone at the dealership. I did go obviously through land titles to see what they actually declared for fair market value.
Right.
$2,650,000. This is not, sorry, just to be clear, this is part of the verification process that I do.
Sure.
When we see that they're declaring that, they declare that for their land transfer taxes, so.
Right. And you're not aware of any relationship with the between these two organizations that exchanged?
All I have is the information we have in front of us. Clearly, it's part owner, and as I indicated, it, you know, depending on who's involved and what percentage, it could vary from dealership to dealership, right? So, but ultimately, when you declare that it's fair market value at $10,650,000, you're not going to include $4 million in goodwill for franchise fee for what the franchise worth, what's on the lot kind of thing, because then you'd be paying taxes on top of that for absolutely no reason. And I don't believe that is the case. Usually this almost always goes through a solicitor. It declare fair market value. And you know, these aren't unsophisticated property owners, you know exactly.
And these typically are not sold through brokerages, are they?
As far as no, typically you sell the franchise, but everything is governed by the manufacturer. Everything has to be approved by them. So no, this wouldn't really necessarily be through an agent of any sort. I'm not in and out of the industry, obviously, but typically we see is, say, Vicar, a good example, when other smaller franchisee owners were retiring, getting out of the business, you see a Vicar of sorts moving in and buying up everything. Typically, they consolidate the entire portfolio of what they can to gain that control over it. So,
and you're not aware of anything regarding, say, the lease and an option, or for that matter, are you aware of any appraisals?
That doesn't play into what they declared a property registry. So they're just declaring what the fair market value of the property
right
is.
And they're declaring a value there, but our task is to figure out whether that actually represents the fair market value or the market value. And typically how you guys or the assessor side looks at these properties is to actually do the sales verification, to look to see whether there was an appraisal done, whether they themselves consider the sale a market transaction or arm's length. What you've looked at is simply the title transfer, correct?
It's what they pay land transfer taxes on when you go through this. And I've had, unfortunately today, the first appellant withdrew. We would have went through it in full detail, but you know, they withdrew and we couldn't get to that point. So at this point, I don't believe it. When I see this on any property registry, that's a verified fact. I don't believe it's an error in any way. It goes through legal.
And do you pull these titles on all of these properties?
Where I can, where there's a recent sale, yes. I also, there's also the land transfer documents themselves that I can sometimes have access to, but for Board of Revision level appeals, it's sometimes lags where I might not be able to get it in time for this.
Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia, any questions?
No, my questions were regarding the sale as well. And so maybe we'll hear a little bit more about that when Mr. Navarro presents. So I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Gisela.
I'm fine, thank you.
And I have no questions. So Marcelo, let me just get there. You're up.
Okay. So 670 Century Street, if you can turn to page 6 and 7, you can see the location. And in terms of the property itself, you can see on page 8 how it's split up between showroom space, service area, addition that was built in 2020, and the mezzanine office areas for a total of 41,357 square feet. On page 13, you can see our income approach. Regarding the sales comparison approach, we did look at the sale and we simply don't have enough information to make that conclusion. So we need additional information to figure out whether this was a bona fide sale. And I also looked at the title. I saw that information. But there's some unknowns here, and I think I would follow up on those. I need to follow up on those before I can make a conclusion on as to whether this is, I use the term bona fide sale. So I left the sale out of this approach. Now, in terms of the income approach, again, we've gone with some leases in the general vicinity of the subject. We've chosen a rent of $12.50. Market vacancy of 2%, shortfall of $6, and the management and other of 7%, giving us a net operating income of $466,197, a capitalization rate of 7.25, giving us an income value of $6,430,300. And that has been rounded to $6,430,000. And we've also included the same package that we included in the previous one, the income and expenses for the property and the supplemental COVID questionnaire. So I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Jeremy?
Just aside from the comparables and all the rest we've already covered, just on the sale. Effectively, you're the owner through agency today. You should know and not to know everything the ownership knows, but you haven't investigated the sale of the property.
We are still waiting for information on it. So yes, at that point, we have looked into it. We have pulled the title as well. So we know that the sale occurred, but we're trying to verify exactly what went into that sale.
Shouldn't that have been done prior to coming to the field, though?
I don't think that's a fair question. He did answer the question before. He said he didn't have enough information.
Well, I think it is a fair question, though, as we're at a deal with an agent, and not saying anything personal about you, Marcel or Altus, but effectively the owner sitting here today not knowing about his own sale or their own sale.
Well, the information sometimes comes back and it requires a lot of going back and forth between different people who were privy to the sale. So we'll use the example of 1486. That sale took more digging to find out exactly what was involved in that sale, calling several people. And so unfortunately, we ran out of time. So we are still looking at the sale. It doesn't mean that we're going to stop, but again, you can see that with the other sale, it took a lot of digging to find out exactly what was involved. When, for example, the appraisal took place, whether there was a lease that we could see. So unfortunately, not everything fits into a perfect timeline.
Okay. Fair enough. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Cynthia?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
And Giselle?
I'm just wondering, I'm looking at your aerial photo on page, I guess it's 7.
Yeah.
And there was an addition that was built onto this property, which was originally built in 2005 and 2020.
Yeah, 2020, a smaller addition was added to it.
And can you tell me where that addition is?
Which
portion of the building?
I'm gonna go out and say possibly that it was that
The white portion?
yeah, on the upper picture on page 7.
Okay, and then if we look at the next picture down, I guess that must be a picture of the addition there, is it?
Yeah,
Where the
Yeah.
Volkswagen dealership is?
Yeah.
So that's a brand new structure, or 2020, fairly new.
2020. There was a supplementary issued for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about your cap rate then. Because your cap rate you have at 7.25%.
So I mean, I would defend our position by saying, how many car dealerships do you see in this area? So this would be it. It's not a typical area for car sales. It's a bit out of the way. I'll agree with Mr. Cole. There is high traffic flow, but not everyone is looking for a car as they're driving by. It's not the auto malls that you see or the nodes that you see in McPhillips and Regent Avenue West. I think those, when you're car shopping, you get to look at several different type options, and that's what drives you to that area. And I think this one being in this area is kind of at a disadvantage.
But they have been in this area for decades.
St. James.
Have they not?
Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Well, they were originally on Ness, but yeah. So you may have some loyalty buyers, definitely, but I would disagree with you on that. I say that people go shopping for cars in areas that typically suit the buyer's needs, and I think everybody wants to look at different vehicles. You just don't go unless you are into VWs. Most shoppers, I think, want to look at options. And they have more options in the auto malls and those other nodes that I mentioned along McPhillips and Regent Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
And I have no questions. Thank you. That concludes this property. And the last one on the docket is 1900 Main Street. And Jeremy, you can proceed.
Okay, bear with me for just one moment. Ugh. All right. 1900 Main Street. Roll number is 110304412000. The 2023 assessment is for $6,167,000. This is Eastern on Main Street, on Leland Main, right close to where I live, about 3 minutes down. If we go to the next page, we see we have a sale in 2013 for $6.45 million. I have looked at that sale. I have looked at the sale in the past, and I'll get into that in a couple minutes. We go down to page 7. You can see the dealership. It's been updated throughout the years, as it is a cornerstone on this location for quite some time. The sale included the lot behind. You can see the cars on it. This was in contention the last time it was under appeal with a different agent. I went through this property in full, as we can see on page 9. Status of title again was explored. Highlighted in blue, obviously it's a corporation, and that's not for that price is not for the mortgage is not for this subject property, obviously. But when you look at page 11, you see the originating instruments for the transfer of land. This is exactly the land that we're speaking of and the building on top of it. We see on page 12, I actually was able to get the documents as well. So we see on page 14, highlighted for your convenience, 0.9 at the bottom of the page. I can certify that fair market value for the land as a whole with respect to which transfers is tender or registration within the meaning of Part 3 of the tax administration and miscellaneous taxes on $6,450,000. And then, so what we have here is a declaration of what this land value was. Of all of these that I've looked through here, and obviously the first appeal today was withdrawn, so we're not going to get into it. I've never seen where they declare what it is different on the actual property registry status of title. It always matches. and it should always match. You're going through it with a legal representative, they're signing off on it, they're declaring it, they're making sure, and property registry merely goes to the document grabs from there. So there can be no difference in those two. So I don't necessarily have to continually bring in the transfer documents because it's quite difficult to get them sometimes. But where you see it declared on the status of title, it should be universally adopted as that's what was on the transfer document, whether you get the transfer document or not. Further to that, I actually researched this with the actual property franchise, and when I actually went through here with a former agent, they declared it was simply didn't included the business, the franchise, stuff that's on the lot, all the rest of it. So when I went through this, I actually spoke with Doug Hamilton of the dealership at the time. They indicated that there was an appraisal done. They had appraised value of, and this isn't in the brief, but it's in my correspondence, of $5,610,000 exclusively for the land and building only, meaning the two lots and the building obviously on the one lot. And from the statement adjustments used to support the APA and acquisition, we paid $6.45 million. So they had an appraisal done, and obviously it's a competitive bid, and they paid what they paid. So that's the information we have. It's for land and building only at 6.45, which is exactly what matches on the documents. And again, we know that this has been a rising commercial marketplace. Hasn't been declining. So although this is outside of the reference date by a few extra years, it was still something I researched and looked into. As I said, I've been going through a lot of data, a lot of sales, leading up to what will ultimately be a very large test case for car dealerships. So from that, we'll go through and what the marketplace is as of the reference date, which is on page 3. Again, we're using retail rents and transposing them over. There was some talk last appeal on, the car dealerships operated in the same area for years. This one obviously has to, but there are no rents associated with them, regardless if it's a standalone long-term business in the place or they move around. We're treating everyone equitably the same way. We're taking the market rents from big box stores and retail locations and more dominant locations in place for the subject properties for all these appeals. So from that point, we have 41,600 square feet, which has a PGI of 470,600. The rents in place are $15.71, $4.04 for the storage areas, and $10.88 for the storage areas. And then for the majority of the dealership, 30,400 square feet, we have $12.03. So applied to the PGI, we have a 2% vacancy, which gives effective gross income of $461,188. And then again, our standard parameters apply at $6 for shortfall, 3% for non-recoverables, which gets us a net operating income of $442,360, and capped at 7.15%. Again, it's not a standard cap. We look at the age of the building, size, location, everything. In this particular location, the capitalization rate that was modeled was 7.15%, which is reasonable. It is a little bit of an older building. Like I said, it hasn't updated over the years, but it is in a dominant, prominent location on Main Street in Winnipeg. So the estimated value around it is obviously $6,187,000, and we see from the actual sale, which is about 7 or so years earlier, that it was roughly the same. And we know that the commercial real estate generally in the marketplace hasn't been stagnant. It has been rising steadily over the past decade. So value that I feel we have on here today is conservative. It meets our model projection. It meets our look at the retail market and transposed onto this. But then when you actually subject property sold about 7 years earlier, confirmed for land and building only at 6.45 million in a rising marketplace, I think we have a very conservative estimate on this prominent location. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Marcelo?
Your leases here are coming from the same These are the same ones that you've used for the other ones on
All
page
the same.
50.
All the same, yes.
Okay. Now, regarding the sale, you mentioned that you were aware of an appraisal, correct?
Other than what was declared to me, I never had access to the appraisal. I just spoke with, like I indicated, Mr. Hamilton. They had an appraisal done at, let me give you the exact, open it up again. They had an appraisal dated for September 2nd, 2013 for land and building at 1900 Main Street, which includes the additional land on the other side of Leela. And it was for 5,610,000, again, exclusively of land and building. And then they actually acquired it for 6.5 million. So.
Okay, and do you know what the split was between the lot on Partridge, I believe, and
I couldn't tell you, but I would 100% be certain that they wouldn't be thinking redevelopment for that lot. That lot needs to be in use for this property. This property is a very large, as you see from the pictures. No one would be buying it with the assumption that they'd be converting it to something else, or selling it off. So.
And you're aware that it's quite large lot, that one on Partridge, correct?
Yep. Yep. And if you look, like, I mean, it's been in use since I've been a kid. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's been in use since it's been in operation. Like, it goes hand in hand. It's just a lot that's on the other side of the street there. So.
I mean, I used to jump the fence when I was a kid and look at the cars. So
It's not
that was that was 40 years ago. So it's been used that way for a long time. Now, in terms of the lease, again, this is all model driven.
Yeah.
And do you know if the model adjusts for location?
It would be taking that into account for
Okay.
that as well. But I mean, you're in the north end, yes, but you're also on a particular location that, I mean, it's a dominant car dealership. It'll be there, I'm sure, after I'm not, you know. So
I don't know if you'd get somebody to admit that it's the north end if you're from West Kelowna. But anyways, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia
No, I have no questions, thanks.
and Gisela.
No questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. So Marcelo, your
Okay, so
presentation.
1900 Main Street. You can see the location there on page 6 and 7. Again, I'm not disputing that this dealership has been there for a long time. I grew up in this area. It's been there for a long time. In terms of the value, we can look at page 12 to start off with. So like with our other properties, we didn't want to take so much over a view of the entire city as opposed to a more specific look at the area. So our leases came from generally what's known as the Seven Oaks area. So 1271 Jefferson, 791 Leela, 841 Leela, 2405 Main Street, 2110 Main Street. We got an average of 1290, a median of 11. We put in 1050. Again, this is 41,000 square feet. So we are adjusting for the size of the property. 2% for other, shortfall of $6. 725 on the cap rate. And in terms of the value, you can see our workup on page 14. So our effective market after vacancy is 428.64. We've deducted expenses of 34,956. Net operating income of 393,108. Capitalized at 7.25 gives us a value of 5,422,173, or 5,422,000. And that is what we are asking for. the rest of the package is basically the same that we've included in the other properties. So I'm open for questions.
Okay, Jeremy?
I don't really have any questions other than it's the same argument that we've already made. And I'll sister the same comments on the sale, so you don't have to really ask again.
Well,
it's the exact same.
yeah, I mean, there is some variance in the leases that we use.
Yeah.
So they're more specific to the area.
I get that, but realistically, I mean, our comparables are what they are and yours are what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, as far as the sale goes, I kind of ask the same, I would ask the same questions of the property. So exact same questions would apply now. So you know, I don't have anything for those.
Thank you. Cynthia?
No questions, thank you.
Giselle?
No questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. We have heard all of the items scheduled today, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, Jeremy.
Bye.